Hey guys, welcome back to another awesome episode of Push the Point. I have got two cool individuals with me. Yeah, I went there. Boo. I've got Scott Mines. Yeah, I know. Everyone's thumb down in this already. I've got Scott Mines, who had the most craziest impressive result ever at Pro Tour Lille. James Adams, who got top 4 in the recent Battle Hardened in, I can't remember, where was it?
Columbus, Ohio.
So these guys have recently in the space of Twitter have really just been setting the scene with like showcasing Icelander's power in this amazing new, I'd say amazing new meta, but like Scott, you showcased how crazy she can be in a meta that I really felt like it was very risky taking her to, which was when Prism was about.
Yeah.
And you still managed to pull it through, which is incredibly impressive. And you did, I don't need you to go too, you can go deep if you want to, but you've done some, you've got your own video out that you really went in on on the story. And then you did another video as well with another content creator, which I've forgot the name.
I've done a few. One with the lovely Vaserum, and one for my own channel as well. Yeah, for the most part, the demand was obviously pretty high. People saw like a half decent Icelander result, and there was just a lot of questions and a lot of knowledge required. So I kind of wish I'd sat down and wrote a script and kind of carried myself a little better, but it ended up just being a really big info dump and just kind of talking to a camera for 2 hours or whatever, and it seems to have gone down pretty well. And I'm just kind of glad that I've been able to help people on the path of learning to play the hero. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And yeah, and I think James, you've after Prism has gone, you and again, I feel I'm actually the worst for names. So the other lad that went
Levi,
that's it.
Levi,
the pair of you getting into the top 4 with Icelander, it's just it really then just opened up the doors of going, this hero is actually generally quite real, very good, and very underappreciated because we're all still trying to shake off an aggro meta. So yeah, it was nuts to see that.
Yeah, Levi and I talked a lot of smack before that event, leading up to it, about like, oh, it's okay, we'll see each other in the Icelander finals. We'll see you in the Icelander finals. We got so close, man. 2 top 4s in the opposite sides of the bracket, but this hero is hard to play, and I think we both made one critical error in our top 4 match, right. And it stopped us from seeing each other in the top 2.
Oh man, that's heartbreaking to hear.
It's exciting, man. Yeah. I think there's a lot of future prospects coming out of this hero.
Absolutely, man. So I'll start with you, Scott. Like, what is it that makes this hero quite complex over the others? I know that it's Wizard, but what is it that makes this hero a little bit more complex?
I guess quite a broad question to answer in one go, but I guess we'll kind of like dial it into.
You can jump in as well, James, if there's anything you want to.
I guess kind of the thought process I get from a lot of people about Icelander is that you are fundamentally a reactive hero in the same way that a lot of other controlling heroes are, except you don't have this brick wall of stone defense to kind of rely on while you're reactive. You don't have a fridge of armor. You don't have an inbuilt defense reaction. So you're having to kind of constantly assess how much damage is being pushed at you in exchange for what you're getting in return. So, how much damage is this Insidious Chill worth? What happens if I get pummeled here? These are questions that are like way more intrinsically important to a class like Icelander than something like Briar, because in Briar's case, if you get pummeled, maybe your turn's significantly worse, but in Icelander's case, sometimes you just don't have a turn.
It's that very hard. I agree with you there. It's very difficult because you're actively trying to always make sure you've got something in arsenal, and then sometimes you're like, it's the thing that I found really hard, because I'm, as you know, Scott, I'm actually really also trying to learn Icelander. That's one of the sort of new heroes I wanted to jump into, and what's so difficult is knowing the right card to put in arsenal, because you don't know what their turn is going to be like, because you've got some very niche but very powerful cards like Hypothermia and Channel Bleak Expanse that do these incredibly disruptive moves at the right point, and you got to know that well, I'm going to put this in here, but they may not do something that actually makes this card useful in this moment. And then am I holding on to it? That's what I get my sort of headaches from, is I've got it in the deck, I want to use it, but I've got to use it in the right time, and I don't know when the right time's coming because I don't know what their hand is. Is that fair, James?
Yeah, I think you're touching on what I think is the biggest thing that makes Icelander the hardest hero, or one of the hardest heroes, is that if you look at any other disruptive deck, so look at Winter's Bite in Lexi. You play on your turn, it's usually the first thing you do, and your opponent has their entire hand to look at and see what's the best thing to discard or pay here. Icelander, because she's playing that out of Arsenal, and I know not all lists are playing Bite right now, but just as an example, because you're playing Bite out of Arsenal at any point on your opponent's turn, you, the Icelander player, have drastically more decisions. You basically have to make that decision for your opponent. When are they discarding on their turn? And that there's a lot of wrong decisions that can be made there.
Yeah, I feel like I make every one
in terms of when you put that tax. And that's
Yeah.
what makes it so difficult to learn exactly when you should apply that disruptive pressure.
Yeah, I think I had a quote in Vaysrom's video that I was actually very proud of, that I think kind of exemplifies a lot of what Icelander is, for me at least. In that Icelander as a class thrives so much in encouraging your opponent to make a play that they perceive to be correct, but is actually incorrect. Like, you'll win so many turns by making plays that convince your opponent to make decisions that seem optimal and are not, because of what you have planned later down the line, and that's just where most of her power comes from.
Man, and there's a lot of great mind games that can come out of that. Because if you've kind of like taught your opponent, like, I'm always going to play a blue from Arsenal, you have to respect one Frostbite each turn at least. They're going to play their turn inefficiently, like leave a resource floating. And then you get to laugh because you go into your turn with the Ice Fang that you arsenaled. And you got value out of that card in your arsenal without having to actually play it on their turn.
Okay. I feel like I'm learning now.
I think it's actually one of the big ones that a lot of people don't realize with Icelander is everyone assumes you always arsenal a blue, and that just doesn't happen. It's not possible. You draw too many 2-red, 3-red hands, this kind of stuff. But because you're arsenaling a card and your opponent has to respect the options you have, you can just have this red sitting in your arsenal when they play their turn suboptimally because they have to.
Yeah.
Meaning that even though it's a red that's stuck there, it blocked 3 damage by accident because your opponent couldn't play the way they wanted to.
It's interesting because I always feel like the opponent would just, sometimes they just go, well, I'm just gonna go, and if you stop me, you stop me, right? And then you're like, oh,
what they do, that's going to be better for us most of the time.
Yeah, it's very exciting. That's the sort of stuff that made this hero very interesting. It's also one of the I'm finding the deck building part of it, right? I thought this was kind of linear in terms of what my first thoughts.
So much contention.
I know. Well, no, this is my first thoughts. It's the first time I saw this. You go, okay, Frostech's cool. You got, you just see what Uprising is put on the table, and most of them, you're like, yeah, I'll put them in, right? Because they're exactly what I need to do. And then you look at the Tales of Aria set, and you're like, yeah, Channel Lake Frigid, obviously, stuff like that. And then I thought, well, that leaves you with this much, right? And then you kind of just think, well, there's 2 game plans here: hex and just tempo, right? That's it. And then I played into one game where I don't think they had any spells. They just literally played every ice card with pummel. And don't get me wrong, I think that deck was definitely a rodeo, as they say in Texas. It was kind of wild.
But Icelander is something, all right.
Yeah,
it's definitely an archetype. It is an archetype. I don't know if it's the best archetype.
I think it's one of those, if you didn't see it coming, it could probably get you once, and then it's done.
Right.
But there's after seeing both of your lists, I noticed that actually there's obviously there's some core cards. Every hero has some straight up core cards that they always have in. But it's like there's some simple differences that are making. And this is where I think it'll be good for you guys to sort of debate on on each other's lists, I suppose, because it seems like Scott, you ran Eisenhower's
Weathervane. Yeah,
Weathervane.
Eisenhower Weathervane, yeah.
And then James, in response, you were not running them. You were actually it was some of your yellow choices as well. Were just like I think you were running some ice veins over.
Yeah, so I like max copies of Aether Ice Vein, but I think that really looking at like the archetypes of Icelander that you can build, they're really defined by 3 core cards.
Right.
Eisenhower Weathervane, which is a very proactive fused card. Sigil of Permafrost, which is a very reactive fused card.
Yeah.
And then if you're like really looking for a rodeo, Pummel.
Yeah.
Which some people swear up and down by. I know it won a road to nationals in the U.S.
Right.
It's interesting.
Yeah. It's
the word. Yeah.
So, so was yours, James, a lot more of a reactive type of deck?
Yeah. So I play a deck that is hybrid in the sense that I can play a tempo game plan into the aggro heroes that I can't hex kill. Right. But on the average, I think my list is on the more controlling side for Icelander.
Right.
Even just outside of the Sigils of Permafrost, I play a lot of the 0-cost ice cards, like Winter's Bite, which I know Scott wasn't necessarily playing. And I think that... So I have strong opinions on Weathervane versus Permafrost. I think that Permafrost is almost always the better card, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. I know that there's a lot more Weathervane lists that have put up results than there are Permafrost lists. I don't know. I like Permafrost's ability to fit into both game plans.
Yeah.
So on the OTK, it pairs with Freezing Point really nice to present like 32 to 35 damage out of nowhere in that second cycle once 3 hexes are out.
Yeah.
Against aggro heroes, the block value of Permafrost is not important. The fact that with a 0 cost from Arsenal and then Waning Moon, you're going to tax your opponent 3 resources, whether it's through Arcane Barrier or Frostbites. It'll be 3 resources no matter what.
Yeah, that's true.
And I just think that's a very strong ability to have on a blue in your deck.
Yeah. Yeah. Scott, what was your thoughts?
So I completely agree with basically everything that's been said there. The list I built for Leal was definitely more of a metagame decision than it was a universally good Icelander list. It is significantly more tempo focused. It basically only went for Frost Hex kills in the Guardian matchups and against Dorinthria and nobody else. Otherwise, you were essentially on a full tempo plan. And I found, unfortunately, the more I played into Oldhim in that situation, a lot of my Oldhim opponents were bringing Heart of Ice as a chess piece, which really just completely nullified my ability to block effectively or combo effectively with Sigil of Permafrost. And this was causing a lot of problems because in combination with effects like Tear Asunder or Pummel or these dominated Glacial Footsteps, I was finding myself unable to take damage to set up Insidious Chills and Frost Hexes because I had taken too much damage on turns where I couldn't block effectively as a result of this interaction and this interruption. So I chose to address this by taking a more proactive plan. The deck fundamentally is built to block with 2 to 3 cards every turn. Either Arsenal again after playing out your Arsenal, or set up, a Waning Moon activation or a Coronet Peak and Arsenal the other cards, depending on what's happening, what's going on, what your opponent's doing. And because of that, I basically loaded up on the defense reactions, so my 2 cards were blocking for as much as possible every turn, and set myself up to be able to pitch stack this combination to a point in my deck where I could shut my opponent out of being able to push through the first chunk of Frostbites. So what you essentially wanted to do was set up the chills, amulets, potions, hexes that you would expect of a hex endgame, have your tunic on 3, and you would pitch stack yourself to a point where you could play 2 Eisenhower Weathervanes and fuse a 0-cost card. Now that could be an Encase, it could be a Brain Freeze, or it could be a 0-cost Ice Eternal, because you can do that as well without any resources to do so.
Yeah.
And have that generate 8 Frostbites, regardless of what the effect is doing. And then have the other Ice Eternal in your arsenal. And at this point, your opponent has to try and make a play to break through the 8 you've already given them, and you can respond to that with either Storm Striders on a freezing point or the Ice Eternal from your arsenal to do enough damage to finish the game. Because your tempo game plan should have put your Oldhim opponent to 27, 24, this kind of ballpark prior to this combo turn, meaning that the 24-ish damage you do from Ice Eternal plus Eisenhower Weather Veins should end the game regardless of their play.
All right. Okay. It's as you were describing how you were going to make that thing set up, it made me realize more and more. I've been playing Viserai way too long because my brain is just literally like, how do you set? How do you get this thing?
So
pitch stacking is a lost art to a lot of people.
It's 100% a skill that a lot of people are now finding themselves working on.
Yeah.
And the Weather Vane style of game plan against Guardians requires you to do it, and it has to be you have to be willing to get to your 3rd or 4th cycle sometimes, depending on how things were close together, to set up the combinations you need to draw, because you need to have set Ice Eternal in the arsenal, buy yourself time while you're taking your Tunic to 3, setting up your pieces, and then have access to Weather Vane, 0-cost fuse effect, Ice card, into 4 blues. So you need to have set those 8 cards up on top of each other.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of. Yeah, I suppose really, right? Is that essential for her to succeed? Like, there's going to probably be some people that are going to tune in and listen to this and go, "Oh no, like I'll go back to Fi or something." You know what I mean? Because I'll just play. I just want to beat stick. I want something not that like level of.
I
Do you
think
need to
no.
do that?
And
Okay.
I think part of that has definitely come down to the fact that Oldhim is just kind of slowly becoming this weird hybrid aggro deck at the moment, with a lot of the glacial footstep style
Just go.
Oldhim game plans.
Yeah.
And against them, you basically don't get to full combo in my experience. So you kind of have to find some kind of middle ground and play more of a tempo game. So you need that less, I think, is the truth. I'm not sure about the Sigil situation. Most of that was just informed by the fact I only really wanted Sigil in the Guardian matchups, and Heart of Ice was kicking my ass. So
All right. Got you.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing about as Oldhim gets more aggressive is that your kill combo, it needs to be less and less perfect as a Guardian gets more aggressive, because an aggressive Guardian won't have spare resources, and they'll leak damage much more often at the ends of turns, just from your
100%
waning
that, yeah.
even. So they really easily get down into like a 25-20 life range, just from naturally stacking up your combo, to the point where you don't need a fancy pitch stat. If you have an Ice turn on Arsenal, and if you can just pitch 4 blues in a row, and one of them is Ice, which is not hard to do. You want to naturally pitch your blues anyways.
Yes.
Then you can Ice Eternal for X equals 4, X equals 5 if you have Tunic, and ship 20 damage at the Oldhim.
Yep.
And it takes skill. It is a learned experience, but it's not some mastermind thing that's difficult to pull off. And I think it's very approachable for newer players to Icelander.
Yeah, that's the route that I've gone down. Really, when I first started it up, it was very much going, Frostex is a cool Frostex Ice Eternal cool combo. Let's try and make this work, and then you soon realize that your blocking sucks. You're just like, oh no, and then you try and think, but I've got to call its peak, right? Or I've got to at least get this card in Arsenal. And then Briar. I don't know about you guys. Every single person, Bardra and every single person, I have a strategy of going, I think I got this, right? I think I got this. You just, Waning Moon's a really good card. It's just, you can always just chip in it around and get around there. But Briar has this horribleness of just Channel Mountain Heroic is just an abysmally strong card when it gets going. How do you guys manage that level of damage, like, you know, like a brute coming at you 3 times with their attacks for 0, it's like, okay.
Yeah, so there will definitely be some channel mount turn cycles where you don't have enough disruption, and you're going to take some damage.
Yeah.
When channel mount is out, Coronet Peak is your best friend, because Coronet Peak is up at, like, your blue cards block anywhere between 0 and 3. You know, like Amulet of Ice to Blue Brain Freeze, for example. When Briar's cards are worth 5 to 7 damage each, because all of her attacks gain +3, activating Coronet Peak with a blue is saying, hey, this is a staunch response, but it was free. Like, you're
Right.
blocking 5 to 6 to 7 damage with that one blue off the Coronet Peak when they're staring down a Channel Mount Heroic. It also has the added upside of potentially taking an Earth Blue from them that they were going to need to channel that mountain for a second turn.
Right. Okay.
Generally on those channel mount turns, you're not going to. You're like you're very liable to leak a lot of damage. Your best bet is to block out, save a card for Coronet, and try to keep a 0 cost in Arsenal so that you don't have to commit any pitch when you disrupt, because you're really going to want to have that pitch card to save 3 extra life.
Okay. So it feels like whenever I'm getting into this position where they play the Channel Mountain Heroic down, let's say I've got this 1 card in Arsenal, I've got a 4 card hand. When I'm doing something like that, it makes me generally feel like I've only got 6 block here. You know what I mean? Like, if I really want to make sure I can coronate and I really want to make sure that I've got a card in Arsenal, when something like that is presenting itself, is it kind of okay to just give them your hand and have no Arsenal? Like, does that put Icelander in such a awful spot again? If that makes sense.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I don't think so personally. I completely agree with everything that James has just said. It's exactly how I deal with the Channel Mount Heroic turns as well. Blocking with 3 cards, trying to keep a 0 in your arsenal, activating Coronet Peak is fine. But I'm also more than happy sometimes to just block with like 3 cards, keep my arsenal where it is, so that I don't have to worry about saving a card to go in my arsenal. I can keep a card of value in my arsenal and block with 3 cards and activate Coronet Peak, because my list is heavier on natural defense reactions because of Fate Foreseen and not so much Sigil of Permafrost. My average 3 cards can block 10 damage, and then Coronet's blocking like another 7 just because it's pitching to take that attack away as well. And in those worlds, I'm only leaking 3 or 4 damage every turn the Mount Heroic is up, and that's a more than acceptable number.
Okay. But it's not even just the mount. Sometimes that Briar just has these, like, I don't have mount, but I'll just pump this. You know, this one attack has this big attack.
The same mythos applies. If you're going to lose games where your opponent goes, cool, I found 4 pump effects and all 3 Channel Mount Heroics. Perfect, cool. I leaked too much damage, I died, whatever. But the sad truth is, most of their games, they're not going to find all of this. And if they're finding some of these pump effects, that's more turns until they're finding Channel Mount Heroics. So I can apply the same game plan, soak up the damage, look to continue to sneak in Waning Moon activations where I can.
Okay. Go on, James.
Yeah, so I spoke at the top about how it's very hard to identify when is correct to disrupt. That's one of our advantages in the Briar matchup, is because of those embodiments of Earth, we have a lot more windows to interact with Briar than an average opponent.
Right.
Always consider taking 1, folks. Blocking 3 on a 4-drop attack, taking 1 and forcing the embodiment is your best friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, that Briar is probably going to try to forget the embodiments of Earth. It's on you as the Icelander to say, hey, make your embodiment. Hey, make your embodiment.
Right.
Yes, it is ruled as a beneficial trigger to you, because it is.
That's fair. So, James, when you went into your event, how popular was like Dromai? I mean, your event is kind of wildly. I think that's just thrown the entire. Well, maybe not. Maybe I'm just overreacting, but it's definitely not done. It's not done my head any favors, because Pro Tour to this, it just feels like something massive has happened, which is Prism's go on. But I never thought it would be this drastic. So Dromai is now the new, ice Prism lover, love of their life now. Right? This is another person building board state. Da 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 da. Is this a massive problem for Icelander?
It's a massive problem. I think at the very lowest levels of Icelander versus Dromai play, the Dromai is going to beat up the Icelander, and it's not going to be a good time.
No.
I think as you get more proficient in Icelander, learning how to efficiently use your cards to deal damage, learning to arsenal the right damage blues based on what dragons they have on the board and what they might play, and learning when it's appropriate to spend that damage blue on killing a dragon versus on sending it at their face. I think the matchup approaches parity. It might still be slightly Dromai favored, but I'll take a 40-60 if that's my worst matchup. It's
that's not
pretty
bad.
exciting prospects.
Yeah, it's not as bad as Prism. Like that's
No,
it's not as bad as Prism.
but then they slam down a Thermite on you, and you're just like.
So Thermite is a huge consideration, and you have to, as you're deck building, I think you need to think about how many cards do I have that can kill Thermite.
Mm-hmm.
I think I play 17 or 18, and I would not go much lower than that.
17 to 18 cards that can kill Thermite.
Right. Whether those be poppers, because at the end of the day, poppers are attacks. You can just send them at Thermite.
Yeah.
Or arcane damage spells that deal 4 or more damage.
Yeah. Okay.
Metacarpus nodes can help you out with that. Turns like a blue ice bolt into a Thermite killer. But I really prefer to save Metacarpus for the kill turn if I can.
100% agree.
Yeah.
It's a concession I'm having to make in my list currently. It's the sad truth is the list I played in Leal, as I say, was quite metagamed and did not expect a lot of Dromai. It is now a very real consideration. Thermite is a very real consideration, and I was very light on arcane damage effects that killed the Thermite 1-for-1. And it became pretty evident in testing that matchup for Nationals that I have to adjust those numbers to compensate. Otherwise, I will just have myself with turn cycles where I can't remove it, and the game ends pretty shortly afterwards.
Yeah, I always think that the Metacarpus nodes, for me, for every game that I play, is literally the Dominia. Like Dominia shows up, and you're like, right, guess I've got a. Oh no, also it's Storm Striders. Storm Striders always just for me. Maybe I'm playing this wrong. Just goes, I have to do something about this card. It's just going to look at my hand, work out how this thing doesn't die, kill the thing that's going to kill it, and then go, cool, now try and deal with me every time. And then
it depends on your hand, right? Like if they can take away the only way of killing Dominia, then maybe you have a thought process. But if you've got to, you should be fine. Just take the hit from Dominia and take it off the table afterwards.
Too many dragons, man. There's too many dragons. I literally went to bed just going, can't do this, man. I need to have Scott and James. I'm gonna chat to them. They're gonna help me. And now I feel like I'm in Channel Bleak Expanse. You guys are like, no, you need to have like this weather vane knowledge of stuff. Don't worry.
No.
No.
You listen. The way you improve the Dromai matchup, play a lot of tall red arcane. This is one of the matchups where red ice bolt is like one of the best cards in the deck.
Yeah.
Play tall red arcane. Go face.
Oh, that's
fun. Sometimes you're gonna eat hits from dragons and not kill them, and it's gonna seem super counterintuitive, but you've got to go face. I think I played against the Dromai round 5 of the Battle Hardened. I did beat them, but they had a Vincerikai on the board for 3 turns, and I took 18 damage from that Vincerikai.
My God.
But my hands were better spent reducing Dromai's life total than like spending a red ice bolt to deal 1 damage to kill
100%. I think a lot of people are realizing the longer the game goes for you as Icelander against Dromai, the worse it gets. There is no way of making that game good in the end game, so don't let it get there. Just dump tall red arcane into their face.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. If both decks are losing life at the same rate, the deck with Storm Striders wins.
Yeah.
That's what there is to it.
Yeah, that's usually the good rule of thumb of Wizard, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I apply that mythos.
Boom, I win.
I apply that mythos in most of the Runeblade matchups too. As long as I can keep my life total roughly at yours, I win because I have a Storm Striders. So
yeah, no, that's fair. It's always correct as well to try and keep your Channel Lake Frigid going. for as long as possible. Because sometimes I feel like I've got it out on their turn. They still present some damage to me. I'm blocking up like, what I need to, but I'm also trying to consider I need to actually keep something for Channel Lake Frigid next turn, if that makes sense. Like, is that a very important thing to do?
I think for the most part, it just comes down to that kind of tip we talked about earlier, where it's about assessing the worth of each card, the amount of damage it's either doing or preventing. There is no universal steadfast, hey, keep a card to pitch to Coronet to keep your Channel Lake Frigid around. But if you expect it to prevent, pitching this card to keep Lake Frigid is going to prevent 4 to 5 damage on your opponent's next turn cycle, that's worth more than blocking 3 with the card, right? If putting it in your arsenal is going to, maybe let you do 3 damage from Waning Moon, but prevent 2, then that also is 5 damage total as a swing. So it kind of comes to just assessing what's going to get you the result that you want as to whether you should prioritize keeping it around.
Okay, would you agree with that, James? Is that pretty much fundamentally how that works?
Yeah, I think if you want to look at it heuristically, there's certain matchups where it's correct to keep CLF out as long as possible, and there's others where it's not.
Sure.
Generally, like the aggro matchups and Icelander, I want to keep CLF out as long as possible.
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah. Any aggro matchup is worth more than an arsenal, right?
Yeah. So, if you want just like a heuristic rule, it's definitely more nuanced than that. But if you just want like the distillation, keep it out as long as possible against aggro. It's okay to let it die against something that's a bit more mid-rangey.
Okay. Cool.
I actually have an interesting one for you, James. I wondered how you felt about this.
All right, let's go.
So, Dash matchup is one that I've actually kind of been working on a bit at the moment. I've actually found I've had some success in pitch stacking hypothermias and Channel Lake Frigids to the end to stop myself dying to gunshots towards the end of the game, as opposed to playing them early.
They're definitely... So I think it depends on if they're playing like boost versus mid-range versus pistol.
So assuming everyone turns over pistol now, which is the common.
I like sandbagging the hypos for sure. I think Channel 8 Frigid buys you so much tempo that I'm probably playing it out in the first turn cycle.
Okay.
But I've definitely have pitched a non-zero number of hypos to Dash against Dash.
Yeah.
Just to have a blowout card for late.
Yeah, I've just found you kind of need that effect once the purifiers are set up, and it prevents more damage, on the second cycle by playing the hypothermia, stopping 8 from 2 gunshots as opposed to stopping 4 the first time around. Just wondered if you had a take on it, because Dash is a matchup I'm kind of working through at the moment. Their blue count makes things a little awkward, and they have such a good late game. So
it's a hard matchup. Yeah, it's one of the harder matchups because neither tempo nor a hex really works against them. So you have to play this like weird hybrid game.
It was my other loss in the calling was to Dash. So it's a matchup I've kind of been attacking, but I can't find a plan I'm happy with.
Yeah, it was my loss in the top 4, and I'm also like racking my brain about how do we consistently beat this.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, fair. I appreciate the input. Thank you.
So, what's your thought processes over the coming nationals? And we could look at this as in the lens of as Icelander players, or if you want to just give your thoughts in general, what you think this meta is going to be like. It'd be interesting. Again, this may come out just during the national seasons of this weekend with France and Australia. So maybe there'll be 1 or 2 things that might be like, oh, okay, weird, cool. But what do you think's going to be like for nationals in the lens of Icelander? I suppose we'll go with that. We'll start with that. Scott, as a UK guy.
I don't know about the US, unfortunately, but there's something that's been true in card games for as long as time itself, because I come from other card games as well, that the UK community has always played stuff they definitely shouldn't, regardless of how good it is, because they love it, or it's their pet deck, or whatever. It doesn't matter what game you play, it always happens.
It's so true. It's like,
it's
we should be seeing this, and then someone just goes, here
I've
comes
been playing this deck for 5.5 years, and it's fully foiled, and okay, great, it makes sense that you're still playing it.
Someone will bring Bolton, but no, I think this is
100%,
going to
yeah.
no. Although I think this may be a little bit different UK wise. Sorry, James, but if you are interested in what the UK are doing, it's there's a lot of players now that have entered the space of what this nationals is, and a lot of them we're playing the top decks of Road to Nationals. Okay, this isn't last year where I 100% agree. Last year here is half the table that really went for it, and the other half went to loads of armories, right? And the half that went to loads of armories were well up for bringing Azalea and Bolton and whatever they wanted, right? And it was just like, okay, cool. It was good fun, really, really good fun. This time round, I think everyone in the 96 players that are there are all tryhards. Like they're not bringing the silly one. They're bringing the good stuff. So
I don't necessarily mean in the lens of like bringing Azalea or Bolton or whatever, but
oh, right.
I think at the moment now, like a lot of, especially with Prism having LL the way that she has, a lot of people are going to go with their comfort picks because at the end of the day, a skill set on the deck and understanding its matchups intrinsically is going to be worth more than any meta call in this current environment. So you're going to see a diverse meta game mostly off of that, I think.
Yeah.
But in terms of decks, I expect to be the most represented in the room. For me, it's still Oldhim and Briar. I think the UK is very high on Briar. It always has been. Obviously, with our national champion taking down a Pro Tour with Briar, it's somewhat hard to expect it to not turn up in numbers. And I think just Oldhim in general has had a huge popularity boost with Prism leaving. I kind of expect Dromai and Icelander to fall themselves into positions 3 and 4, just underneath that, and then we'll kind of see where the rest of the aggro decks finish in underneath that gap. So that's kind of what I expect for UK Nationals anyway.
Justin, what about you, James?
So I think we're going to see more of the same.
Yeah.
In terms of overall representation at US Nationals.
Yeah.
So not the top 8 necessarily. There was some interesting things going on at the Battle Hardened on Sunday. There are a lot of Viscerai and Briar like at tables 8 through 12, all X1, and Oldhams were just like handing them their second loss and passing them down. There was some weird gatekeeping happening there. I think Briar makes a comeback at US Nats. I think she's still a very good deck.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of exposure at the Pro Tour. Viscerai as well. He can easily hang. He's a Rune Blade.
Yeah.
They make great damage number as well. I think Oldhim will have a really strong showing, especially this new kind of aggro style Oldhim, which did not exist in the Prism meta, and then everyone was playing it on Sunday. Like all the Oldhims got together and agreed, "Hey, this is our list now."
It's
everyone
so
on the same
wild.
page.
Like,
Cool.
I think they realized that somehow Oldhim just doesn't have the best endgame in the format currently, which means he can't be the hard control deck. He has to have other plans because if the game goes long, he fails. So he's become this pseudo control deck against the aggro players that can just pivot to large dominate attacks against people that are better at going long than him. And it's an incredible transition from where he was all of like 2 weeks ago.
I also expect to see a lot of Dash and Dromai. Dash is a lot of people's like ace in the back pocket. They've been playing it forever. It's just a solid all-around mid-range deck.
Yeah.
Does a little bit of everything. Dromai, I think, is in a place very similar to Icelander. It is a very skill-intensive deck. You can do really poorly with Dromai, or you can do really well with Dromai if you know exactly what you're doing into each matchup. So honestly, I expect to see like more of the same in terms of the overall meta share. Briar, Oldhim, Dash, Dromai. I expect to see a little bit of Icelander at US Nats. I know it's a lot of people's pet deck. It is a very difficult deck to play. And it was very punishing if you don't play it well. So I expect to see a lot of Icelanders at the top tables and at the bottom tables. And I don't expect to see a lot of Icelanders at like the 4-2, 3-3 range.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, honestly. I think it looks like a lot of the Prism diehards have moved to either Dromai or Icelander to like perfect next, and I imagine there's some of them that will get there and some of them that will not, and will likely pick the event for the deck for the event, sorry, and not have a very good day at the office.
I I suppose really I'll leave maybe this as the maybe not maybe the final question, but with such a broad space of heroes that we've just said, compared to the last couple of seasons where, Chain, yeah, can you beat Chain? Yes, this is probably a good deck to play or play Chain. And then it's Starvo. Can you beat Starvo? No, well then don't pick it. You gotta pick a hero that can beat Starvo or play Starvo. That's we know who the target is. And then Protor felt slightly more open, but I think it went into a bit of a Briar is Briar's the target now. Kill Briar, and now you've listed off quite a lot of names. A control hero needs to know what they're actually trying to deal with, if that makes sense. Is there enough stuff in there for Icelander to go? There's enough here I can deal with majority of these heroes, or have you got to look in that certain matchups and go, this is gonna be rough, and I've just gotta hope I don't see them. I'll give that one to you, James.
Yeah. So what I've found in my deck building is that you can get a pretty reasonable OTK matchup with a few cards. It's really just like Hexes, Ice Eternals, and Ice Blues, and you have a reasonable long game. So I find a lot of my deck space devoted to improving the tempo game plan.
Yeah.
And I think that as long as you go into it with that mindset of like, I have to be able to answer Briar, and if I can do that, I'll worry a little bit about Oldhim. That is the right mindset that will let you find an 80 that'll do well. So when I first picked up the deck, I was really into the OTK plan.
Yeah.
And I was trying to work towards an OTK kill against essentially every deck. But it won't get you there against the fast steps, no matter how hard you tech for them as an OTK plan. So build for tempo and have an OTK backup. And I think that's kind of the winning recipe to have 80 cards that will let you do well at Nationals.
Cool. Scott, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the skill in Icelander currently comes from picking what you want to improve, because you have the flexibility to do that in your numbers, but that overall game plan is exactly the same mythos that I follow. Your OTK plan requires a small, like 14 to 15 card package, most of which you're happy to play anyway because they're blue ice cards. And at that point, it's like, okay, well, do I want to be slightly better into Oldhim? Do I want to be slightly better into Dromai? Do I play the extra red damage effect, or do I play another D-react? Because you have some flexibility in your remaining slots to pick battles, but the key there is that these cards aren't going to be horrible into any hero that you play against. If I make the decision to play Yellow Aether Ice Vein because I want another 4 damage effect to kill a Thermai, well, Yellow Aether Ice Vein isn't suddenly completely awful in every other matchup. It pitches to Waning Moon, it blocks 3, it's still a 4 damage effect. So I'm not making my deck horrible into Briar to be better against Dromai.
Okay.
By the way, you should be playing 9 Aether Ice Vein. I will stand by that.
I'll throw it out there now to spoilers for everybody. I currently am. The list I was playing in Lille was not. I made space for some other cards. I am back on 9 Ice Vein as well, so I do recommend.
Yeah, I think I got to that point when I started this up and I had 9 Aether Ice Vein, and I just felt mean, man. I had to say sorry quite a lot, especially when you got Insidious Chill. And you
That's where you're making the mistake, Hamish, is you don't say sorry afterwards.
I was playing. It was just some guys in my local, and they're just like, "Okay, I'll play you in Ice Vein." Oh, okay, your turn. And then I just go, "Okay, your turn. I'll play you in Ice Vein again." Oh no, it's a sad time for the opponent. But anyway, unless there's any other final points for new people who want to pick up Icelander, that people should just really keep an eye on, Scott, is there anything that you just want to end on for a new player who wants to pick up on Icelander, a one cool top tip for them?
Yes. Top tip, I suppose, is remember that you are allowed to not have an arsenal. One of the small things that I see so many people that pick the deck up for the first time doing is making these plays because I have to keep a card going in my arsenal, and sometimes not doing that is going to prevent more damage or deal more damage than doing so. So don't be scared to leave that spot empty. And I guess as a small plug on a more grand scale, if you want more detailed tips and stuff, again, there's a video over on my YouTube channel that you can check out for an hour and a half's worth of waffle.
Awesome, and that link will be in the description below. So just click on that. James, one big cool top tip that Scott may not have said for a new player picking up Arsenal. Icelander. Don't know why I said that.
Picking up Arsenal.
Picking up an Arsenal, yeah.
To the new players, you are not using Coronet Peak often enough.
Okay.
And that tip kind of goes along with what Scott said. There's a lot of game states where it's correct to pitch that blue to Coronet instead of Arsenaling. But Coronet reads gain 15 life if you play it the right way. Yeah. Like it's one of the best defensive equipment in the game.
A headpiece blocks 17. I promise you, it does. It's crazy.
Okay, cool. Well, on that note, guys, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. It's been very eye-opening for me. I felt if people are looking at my face as we're going through this, like, oh man, this poor guy has really given it a go, and I can see he's literally I am the guy from Brain Freeze at the minute. There is a lot of information, but I hope you can relate to that a little bit. It hasn't stopped me from even considering taking this on. It's an exciting new hero to really, really make that brain bigger. It's such a cool hero to play.
If you like making decisions and like decision points is the thing about Fab that you enjoy, take the time to learn to play Icelander. You won't regret it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. She's just so much fun. It really shows the scope of how this game can be done with this, with their templates of what they've got. You've got 4 cards, you've got an arsenal. How we're going to make this do all this, it is really, really, really fascinating. You think they haven't got any more ideas apart from just aggro? It turns out they've got some awesome heroes, and it's exciting to see some more coming out. Even if we can get any fun stuff coming out of Dynasty, who knows? Ooh.
Hey, there's a wizard in the set. That's all I need to say. There's plenty more toys coming.
There is technically a wizard
in the set.
Technically a wizard in the set.
There is technically a wizard in the set. There you go. An all red wizard.
Probably fine.
Yeah, probably fine. Just get CNCs. Anyway, right, leave it there, guys. Thank you so much for your time.